Welcome to the Gytanzo monthly update of August and September 2017. We have a lot to cover today, as I'm sure you can tell by the length of the video, so let's just jump right into it. But before we start with the meat of today's video, I want to talk about the past month in terms of content creation, and the big one, the big elephant of the room, is that I have begun streaming again. I stopped streaming 6 or 7 months ago after Shadow of Mordor, because I just got burnt out on streaming, I got burnt out on gaming. But I'm back and better than ever, hopefully, asterisk, probably not. We started streaming with the Destiny 2 PC beta, which was a blast. I loved it. I'm really excited for its release on October 24th. I'm excited to share my final experience, because I know everyone's playing the console one, and I just don't really have a console to play on. We don't have a working PS4 right now. In terms of after the Destiny 2 beta, we played Portal 1. We finished that, liked it a lot, and we're currently in the process of completing Portal 2. In terms of what you can look forward to, we're going to complete Portal 2 probably either tomorrow or the day after that, which would be the 18th or the 19th, Monday or Tuesday. After that, I don't really know what I want to play. We're probably looking at a variety of games, similar to the games that I put on the poll before we started playing Portal, which would be something like either Dark Souls 2 maybe, Transistor, Her Story, I heard that was interesting, or maybe even Overwatch or PUBG. We'll see. You can look forward to a variety of games. But that concludes the recap. How about we get into the meat of today's video? And I said in Discord that I want to start doing a monthly topic, and this month's topic is my PC specs, because I didn't want to talk about that in the last update. I think I included a PC part picker list, but I really want to get more in depth of why I pick these parts. Do I like them? Do I not like them? Am I upgrading anything or adding anything in the future? So that's what today is. It's not going to include peripherals, because this video would be far too long if I did. I'll probably make that next month's topic. But what I've done is I have pinned all my computer components right here, and I'm just going to go through them and pick why I bought them, if you should buy them, would I recommend them, that kind of thing. So starting off, one of the most important parts of a computer is the processor. And while every single part is important, the computer processor is especially important. And I got the AMD Ryzen R7 1700. It comes with these 8 cores and 16 threads. I don't really care about the TDP, I have a massive power supply. But regardless, why did I pick this? Well, if you ever ask someone what's the best gaming processor, they're probably going to say something like the Intel i7 7700K. That is considered the best gaming processor. There's a more money efficient one with the Intel i5 7500K, I believe it is called. But in terms of content creation, that's like an area between good gaming performance and good content creation power. But it only comes with 4 cores, and if you don't know what a core is, consider it a brain in the computer. I'm pretty bad at analogies when it comes to computer parts, and there's a lot of people that do it better than me. But basically, for every single core that you have, your computer has one brain. And the more cores you have, the less of a workload the other cores will receive. So it is more efficient for certain processes or certain files or programs to have more cores. Gaming doesn't really benefit from multiple cores. Many games only utilize 1 or 2 cores, which is why the Intel processor is overall better, because the more cores you have, you generate more heat. More cores equals more heat, because it's just more brains. It's more stuff. So the more heat you have, the less powerful the card's base clock speed is. This is the base clock speed right here. So while this card has 8 cores and it has a 3 gigahertz boost clock, and I believe the i7 7700K is like a 4.5 gigahertz boost clock speed. However, content creation does not benefit from a clock speed boost. I mean, if you overclock it, it will benefit, but it will more heavily benefit from more cores. So when I was deciding what processor I wanted to pick something that would make streaming easier, and this will make streaming easier, and that is why I picked it, because it makes it so that I can game and stream with less of a with less strain on my computer. If you're just gaming, though, get an i7 7500K. But regardless, that's why I picked this one, and I love it. It's really good. It's just fantastic. No complaints from me. I would buy it again. For the cooler, I have the Noctua NHD15 Special Edition AM4. Special Edition doesn't really mean anything, but the normal NHD15, I can't highlight that, has a Intel bracket. So you need a bracket to put it on your cooler. You put the cooler on the processor. The AM4 edition is AM4 is Ryzen this thing's bracket. So this just basically means that you don't need a aftermarket or a extra bracket to attach this onto it. It comes shipped. It is out of the box, able to be attached to a Ryzen processor. That's why I bought this specific version. Why did I buy this cooler? Well, this cooler is massive. It's really large. I can't really show a picture of it. Maybe the specifications will show its size. It's massive. It's really massive. 166 millimeters. It doesn't sound like much, but in terms of fans, that's a lot. I can't even use all of it. So if you look at this diagram right here, you'll see there's a fan here, and it's hard to tell, but there's also a fan right here. But this fan requires some space, and when I get to the motherboard, I'll show you, I can't use this fan because it blocks parts of my motherboard. I can use this fan, but I can't use this fan. I'll probably use it as like a case fan or something like that. For cooling performance, it's really difficult to beat this. This cooler is legendary in terms of air coolers for how good it is at cooling processors. It's expensive though. It was $90, I believe. So it's an expensive cooler, but I'd say it was worth the money. Again, I don't really have any complaints. I put a lot of research into all these parts. It was 8 months of research, so I don't really have any complaints with any of these, except for really minor ones. The one that I have the most problems with is this guy right here, the motherboard. Is this a bad motherboard? No. And actually, I love it a lot. The problem is I didn't realize that this wasn't 100% compatible with this. So this is where the processor goes right here, in case you don't know anything about computers. And the cooler sits directly on top of it. So the one fan goes kind of in the middle like that, and the other fan would go right here. But this thing right here, I don't really know what this does, but it's important. Everything on a motherboard is important. So I would have to tear that off if I wanted to use the second fan, and obviously I can't do that. But in terms of specs, it has 8 USB 3.0 ports. One of them is a Type-C. You know, Type-C should become the new standard for these kind of things, especially for phones. I digress. It's also a good motherboard. It supports DDR4 3200. Again, it's BIOS. If any of you know what that means, it was easy to set up. This was recommended to me by a bunch of people. They said just get this motherboard if you're not going to be overclocking a lot. For memory, I have Vengeance, LPX, all that garbage. It's 16 gigabytes of DDR4, 3200 megahertz RAM. I didn't pay $190. I paid like $150 for it. But this is the MSRP. There's not really much to say about memory, except for these numbers don't mean a lot. I mean, it means a lot, but it's just there's no point in really me divulging into it. If you care, just research it in your own time. 16 gigabytes though, some of you may be thinking, why didn't you get 32 gigabytes? You're already spending $2,000 on a computer. 32 gigabytes, you should have just gotten that. And the thing is, I would have, and I could have afforded it. If I'd waited a week, I could have bought 32 gigabytes of RAM. But not that many people need that much RAM, and the general rule of thumb is if you cannot list the specific reason why you need so much RAM, you don't need it in the first place. It's basically that simple. 16 gigabytes is as much as you need, and you can even survive with 8 gigabytes. But if I go into my task manager, specifically, you'll see that I'm only using 35% of my RAM right now, and that's recording on OBS. So I'm barely using anything. So for my SSD, I got a Samsung. There's not really the size here, but I got a 500 gigabyte Samsung 850 EVO. Again, if I wanted to, I could have splurged and gotten a better SSD. Some of them can be thousands of dollars, literally, and hundreds of times more powerful. I knew I wanted an SSD, but I didn't need that big of a one, so I just set it on this. This thing is fantastic. Again, if I open the task manager back up and go to this section specifically, my computer, from the time of me pushing the power button, booted up completely in 13.4 seconds. If you got a super high-end one, you can reduce that to 2 easily. But with hard drives, it can take minutes. So my old computer took about 4 minutes for me to completely boot up because it was so old and the hard drive was so slow. This thing's also good for gaming. You can throw games like The Witcher 3 and their loading times will be significantly reduced. But as of right now, I don't have any games on it because I don't play that many games that require that extra loading time. It's not really useful for multiplayer games, but I digress. If you can afford it, get an SSD. I love this thing to death. It's my boot drive, so that's why it boots so quickly. For my hard drive, I have specifically a 4 terabyte Western Digital Red NAS hard drive. The hard drive was was funnily enough one of the hardest parts to pick out, because for stuff like the processor, I settled on it within a few days. I knew I was going to do content creation, so I picked that processor. But when you get into the 4 terabyte area, it's difficult to find a processor that has universally good reviews. With 1 terabyte, you just get the Western Digital Blue. It's Everyone gets it. It's a really good price to performance and storage capacity hard drive, but all of these 4 terabyte hard drives had like 4 stars in Newegg. So, and all of them had it. There wasn't one that had 5 stars. If it did have 5 stars, it was one because it had a few reviews. I eventually settled on this because I believe this had the best reviews, but in terms of why did you get 4 terabytes, it's a lot of storage. I don't know, because I wanted to. And I will almost never need to upgrade ever. And also there's like some data that suggests that 4 terabytes is the sweet spot in terms of for performance. I don't really buy into that, but I do have a 4 terabyte hard drive. That's where the majority of my games go. So if I go into this thing right here, I go to properties, I've used 3.0 terabyte. I've used about less than a terabyte, just for and that is with all of these games right here. All these games take up less than 1 terabyte. So that was a fun to download. For my graphics card, I picked an EVGA GeForce GTX 1080 Ti SC2. Don't go with the SC2, go with the SC1. Only reason I didn't is because it was out of stock, specifically on Newegg. But again, this thing is amazing, and this is probably one of my favorite parts of the computer, because it's just awesome seeing it boot up games and push them to their absolute limits. Like Portal 2, its loading screens hit 2,000 frames per second, which is just funny. It's funny to see that the number be so high. It's also nice to see going from integrated graphics to this thing, which is I believe 15,000 times more powerful than the integrated graphics I was using. So it runs games so much more well. Well, that's not proper grammar, whatever. It runs it really well in comparison to my awful integrated graphics. Again, I don't have much complaints about it. The only thing that's complaining is my wallet, because this thing is $800 freaking dollars. But if you can afford it, get this. My case, I picked the Fantex Enthoo Evolve ATX. The case was by far the hardest part to pick, and I think that applies to almost everybody, specifically because it's what you look at. It's when I'm looking at my computer right now, the case is the first thing I see. It all revolves around a case. And there's different types of cases. There's mini ITX, micro ITX, full tower ATX cases, mid tower ATX cases. I eventually settled on a mid tower ATX case per other people's recommendations, and I agree with that sentiment looking back at it. Full tower cases can, if they're good, can cost $250, and I just didn't need that room. I still have plenty of room in my system right now, and that's with this mid tower case. Mid tower cases are obviously cheaper because there's less space, and people pointed out the NZXT NS40, I believe it's called, something around that range, NS340, which is and that one defines the word legendary. It is the only thing that I can think of a computer part that's more legendary is like the Cooler Master HX12 212, which is legendary, but so is the NS340. It's for $80 you get a fantastically well made case with a lot of room and really spectacular cooling. But I wanted something that was premium, because I have premium computer parts. I wanted a premium thing, and look, it even has the word premium right here, so I know it's true. And this thing has some of the best build quality of anything I've ever purchased before in my entire life. It's truly incredible. It has a nice aluminum brushed finish. It comes with 3 case fans. The cooling is the worst part of it. It has really rough cooling. It's not the best thing for cooling. If you're going for performance, don't get this case. But I got it for the aesthetics and for it's the ease of setting up. Also, I never noticed that this thing was Satan Black, so I own a case of Satan. That's about as much as I can say with here without dragging it on too long. And finally, my power supply. I picked the EVGA Supernova 600 power P2 80 Plus Platinum Certified Power Supply for 650 watts. 650 watts is technically speaking overkill. I think my computer uses about 400 watts. In terms of the efficiency curve, though, you want 50%, but 50% of 400 is 800, and I didn't want to splurge that kind of money. I mainly got this because of the Platinum. It's the best 650 certified power supply, universally, really. And Platinum certification is kind of just a marketing kind of scheme. Gold is better for your wallet, but I had leftover money, so I'm just like, whatever. Again, there's not really much to say about this. The build quality is good. It's not going to set my computer on fire anytime soon. That's about all I can say. But that covers up my PC specs. Next month I will again probably do my peripherals, and then I'll to go more in depth of why I picked that specific peripheral. And with peripherals, there's room for upgrading. With this thing, I'm probably not going to upgrade it for a few years, but with peripherals, I already am looking at upgrades for a few of them, such as my keyboard and my monitor specifically. But if you have any recommendations for next month's topic, or maybe ones afterwards, leave them either in the comments below, which I won't check, or in Discord. My Discord link will be in the description along with my Twitter. You can subscribe if you actually care. I don't care. I really don't. And I'll see you all next month, or maybe in tomorrow or the day after that for my streams. Thank you if you stopped and watched this entire thing. I appreciate it. I love you. I will see you next time. Bye-bye.